Is the Razer Kishi V2 the best gaming controller for iPhone users? Let's find out. Welcome everybody to Apple Insider. It is Andrew here, and this is the Razer Kishi V2. It drops for iPhone users just a few weeks after the Android version already came out on the market. The biggest difference between the two being that the Android version has a USB-C connector, while the iPhone version, of course, has a Lightning connector there on the inside. And because of this new design, it should work with any iPhone that currently exists, and likely the new iPhone 14 models that are set to be released. The controller has all the buttons you'd expect, a directional pad joystick there on the left-hand side, as well as the A, X, Y, B buttons and an additional joystick on the right-hand side. You have right triggers, right bumpers, and left bumpers, as well as an additional macro button hidden up there by those triggers that you can program to do anything that you'd like. All of this connects using the gaming app from Razer called Nexus. The Nexus app is basically your home hub, and it gives you an idea of all these different games that you can play in various categories. Kind of, for me, the app isn't cutting it. It's a little bit bare bones, and they don't seem to be super great at curating games. There are so many games that are out there that probably should be highlighted that are simply not mentioned here. Many from Apple Arcade. I look at this and I really hope that Razer has some new versions of this coming because it just feels a little weak compared to what the competition is doing. So here it is, the Razer Kishi V2 for iOS. Let's touch on a few of the high-level features here, the big things that I like. So everything has been switched to new micro switches on the inside, which does give them a good clicky feel. They are very light, take very little pressure to click, which can definitely be a good thing if you're trying to move really fast. Though maybe on these buttons, could I want a little bit more of a tactile feel to those micro switches because there's not a ton of like key travel or button travel. So just a little bit more of a substantial click, though it does respond and does have really good feedback. Of course, we have the Lightning connector here on the inside where you can connect your phone, so your phone will be plugged into the controller, wired controller here, not wireless. It does expand, so you can fit pretty much any iPhone, including the max-sized iPhones, and unlike the backbone, this does not require a special adapter or anything to work with the larger iPhone 13 Pro. It'll slot in here just fine, even with that massive camera bump. Kind of put it here, line it up across, connect it in the port, boom, it fits just fine. No issues with that camera bump at all. Everything slots in there, nice, very even all the way across, kind of hard to see there. But yeah, it fits the phone just fine. Absolutely no issues fitting the larger iPhone 13 Pros. Then the last thing that I want to touch on is these micro switches here at the front. Each controller, or each the left and the right side of the controller, has these tiny little additional buttons. Those can be programmed inside of the Razer Nexus app, and this is really cool. Say you really need to hit the X button a whole bunch, but you can't take your finger off of A, so you could program it so that way you can hold down A with your thumb, but then use either of your index fingers to use those new micro buttons, those tiny macros there for any button that you'd like. So it could be X or Y or anything else on this controller can be mapped to those additional finger bumpers there in the front. I think it's really awesome that they did that. This is by far one of the coolest features and can really separate this out from others on the market. Button-wise, there is a direct shortcut to the Razer Nexus app, and you have a capture button that you can use to capture screenshots or screen recordings. I thought it'd be interesting to compare it to the original Razer Kishi that I have sitting right here, and we can see some of the differences. Obviously, the first is the design. So they've gone to the new stretchy design that clips over it, similar to the backbone, and others, where this is the first one, which has this kind of fabric material on the back, so it has this hard plate, and you could pull these pieces aside, and that plate would come off the back, and yeah, it would stretch out, and you have two controllers like this. It's a little funky, a little weird, because it's all flexible back there, but it could stretch out and fit over the controllers. So Razer had this one out, and I really liked this design. I really liked it a lot. I thought it was very easy to attach to your phone, easy to see. Everything about this was great. But I mean, some people did not like the flexible back. I liked it because of how portable it was, but I get it. The new design definitely is easier. All the buttons now feel better. These ones especially, there was no real click to them for the the A, X, Y, B buttons. Similar to this, there's a little bit more of a clickiness on the directional pad, but the buttons always felt a little mushy on this controller, especially compared to the new version of the Razer Kishi. All these buttons definitely feel better, a lot more tactile, big improvements in how this thing is actually feeling, performing, and operating. The bigger comparison, though, is to the Backbone 1. So I have right here, this is the PlayStation edition of the Backbone 1. It's basically just a kind of a repaint to it, some kind of PlayStation callouts. There are a little small touches, such as the PlayStation logo when you open it up. Hiding there on the back. But other than that, this is just the standard version of the Backbone 1. And this is an amazing, amazing controller. This is one of probably the most popular, reliable iOS wired controllers that are out there. They pioneered a lot of the things, the design, the quick button to get into the Backbone companion app where you can explore games and everything like that. Very good controller, but there are a couple differences. First, they don't all use micro switches on these buttons, so there is a difference in feel between like the D-pad versus the buttons over here. They do not use micro switches for everything and just doesn't feel quite as tactile as it does on the Razer Kishi. Other than that, they also don't have those customizable buttons here in the front. You just got the standard buttons there. The Razer Kishi does have that programmable button there on the top. The last difference is while both controllers have the pass-through for charging, only the Backbone has that extra audio. So you can plug this in and use a set of wired headphones if you want that pass-through wired audio. I get it. Most people now are probably using wireless ones, so it's not a big deal, but wanted to mention it as we're comparing the two of them. Other than that, yeah, you guessed it. They look very similar, a lot of benefits. I think for me, the Razer has a slight edge just because better button feel and the additional programmable buttons on the top, but I do prefer the app that comes with the Backbone 1 to the one that comes with the Razer. It's just a little bit better at discovery and more of a console-looking interface. So I think Backbone wins with the app, but I'm leaning towards Razer here for the hardware. I've been gaming with the Razer Kishi V2 and my iPhone 13 Pro for quite a few weeks now, playing a lot of Sonic, a lot of racing games, and the few solid first-person shooters that are available on the iPhone. And it's a really nice controller. Before this, I went back and forth a lot between the original Razer Kishi because it's so portable and the Backbone 1 here at the house, just because I really like the design. I just don't always like traveling with it, and the same kind of applies here to the updated Razer. I wish it was a little bit more portable and collapsed more compactly than this expanding version does. But gaming-wise, it's awesome. I really like it, and there's such a big difference when you're playing games versus using just the touchscreen. I mean, racing games are one thing because you don't have boundaries with the on-screen controls and just slides around a joystick. So much better for controlling cars. Or something as simple as Jetpack Joyride. By not having your fingers on the screen, it's easier to be able to jump, even if it's just pressing the A button a whole bunch of times. There's a lot of things that this controller can benefit when you really want to get better at mobile gaming. Razer has some stuff that it can still do. I want to see updates to the app, but with a customizable programmable macro buttons, this better design that feels nice and solid, Razer has done a good job at updating its popular gaming controller. But it's some stiff competition out there, and we'll see how it holds up. Let me know what you guys think. Do you like the updated Razer Kishi, or are you still a fan of Backbone or another gaming controller? Let me know down below in the comments or on Twitter at Andrew_OSU. If you'd like to grab the Razer Kishi for yourself, there's a link for it down below in the description.